Could twerking make giving childbirth a breeze? Find out on this week's episode of Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And we've introduced Lisa Faiman on our podcast in previous episode where I interviewed her as Lisa Rose. She was living in Missouri. She's moved back to California and is going into some really interesting extensions of the work that we talked about in our previous episode. And some of the applications are literally as shocking as that intro. It's pretty cool, but it's also very practical, and I'm excited for you to hear it.
She's just so beautiful, such a beautiful soul, such a wealth of knowledge, and just the work that she's doing and what she's putting into the world. I'm super excited for her app to officially launch. It's sort of in the beta testing round at the moment. And I just love, she's just so, I think her approach is so unique, bringing in the biomechanics and the practical application of moving your body, but also bringing in a storytelling element, which I think is just amazing. So I love this conversation with her. She shared a lot about her free birthing experience, where she's at in life currently. If you haven't listened to the first episode, this was way back when Isaac was just doing the podcast himself. I know all of those episodes are definitely available on Spotify, and then most of them are available on Rumble. So go to our link tree if you want to watch the first episode it was under Lisa Rose. You can check them out there. And it was like a continuation of that conversation just a few years later.
Yeah, she's someone that's overcome so much. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I think is what it's called, is the hypermobility that made the joints unstable, make a lot of her life very painful and difficult. But it was interesting. Our last chat, we talked a little bit about her background doing a lot of long form meditation, 8 hours a day type stuff.
Wow.
And I could see that being a very useful discipline in some regards, especially when you're dealing with the body not working the way that everyone else's does. But it would take a lot of learning to be calm when things are uncomfortable or difficult, and learning to maintain that steady mind and that steady presence in your heart. She's since moved on and hasn't promoted that kind of lifestyle that she used to do, because she feels like that is a bit much. In California, you can imagine, they get a little bit too into some things like that out there. But I still find that stuff useful. That's why it's so strange. Me being from Wyoming, I find an affinity for some people out in California, even though there's diametrically opposed culture. I'm literally wearing one of my favorite t-shirts here, an AR-15, and I'm very much into the gun culture, but I'm also into the spirituality and being grounded and being kind and being helpful, and also healing generational things, and then doing the best you can with what you've been given. And Natural AF is about that. It's about getting into your gifts, identifying them, recognizing them, and maximizing them.
Yeah.
How do you be the most authentic you, and how do you make the most out of that? It's all about abundance and about actually embodying it, not just speaking about abundance and saying, I'm manifesting abundance, but it's actually just living that and embodying that despite the difficulties, despite the setbacks. And we've all gone through setbacks. We've all gone through difficulties. This has landed her back in California, where she doesn't really, it's not where she visions herself being long-term. Mine landed me in Australia, which has been amazing, but it's also challenging and difficult because I can't have these here.
He's talking about the gun on his shirt for those listening.
For those listening, I'm just holding my shirt up. So you do the most with what you got and where you're at. And it's amazing when you tap into that point of living from gratitude, and not just to cover over the things and just pretend like everything's okay, but actually really just loving and living a life that you're just waking up ecstatic to be in. And Lisa brings a lot to the table with helping you overcome some of those difficulties or challenges, giving you the ability to be healthier, more vibrant, more mobile, making a lot of things easier as you move the proper way and you feel more free and you feel more connected to your body. I love all this stuff, and I'm glad that she's doing what she's doing. So
yeah, I've got to say I felt really inspired talking to Lisa, and I feel so incredibly grateful and very privileged that we get to interview so many amazing people such as Lisa, who are so authentic and show up and just are unafraid to share their personal life experiences. Because I often say that on this show, I believe that often our greatest challenges become our greatest gifts. And, Lisa shared very openly about, where she's at now, because a lot has changed from when Isaac first interviewed her. And she just, carries herself with such grace and so much resilience and, such a positive attitude. And I think so many people can learn from that, because it really doesn't matter where you've come from. You are the author of your life, and you can choose whatever direction you want to go in. just knowing that even if it's challenging, like you can get through it. And I love that we get to highlight people like that on this show.
And so skipping ahead to where we're at this weekend, we're going to be in Sydney or near Sydney for the Freedom Summit. The My Self-Reliance crew is putting on down there. We're really excited to have a booth or a market stall down there. And I'm excited to see what they've been preparing. Go check that out. In the show notes, there's a link to that. There's some information on the website, some videos. You can see all the things involved.
And it's a free event, guys. So if you're in and around Sydney, check it out. It's a free event. You can come absolutely for free. You just register for your free ticket or tickets and you can come and check it out. And then if you want to see the speakers, I think the most you'll pay is $60. And then there's also camping available if you want to come for the whole 3 days, and then you just pay a couple $100 for the camping.
So bring your tribe, bring your friends. It's going to be a good time. There's going to be music. There's going to be different workshops as well, outside as well as indoors. They've done a really good job organizing it. I'm really impressed. So check it out. We're going to be bringing the heat with Alleviate. We got these are our updated labels. If you haven't seen this, when we first started the show, I've updated these a bit. This is in Australia. In the US, the labels are a little bit different. So if you're ordering these online and they look not exactly like this, it says muscle and joint cream on it. Same product, same amazing ingredients, same formula. I'm just a man gen and I trial and error my way to better and better results.
Yep, we're on label design number 5,333 now.
But I really put a lot into it, and everything down to the water that we use. We use, like in Wyoming, we were making it there. It's just mountain water, we call it, but it's out of the artesian well that my parents have on their property. So that water is the foundational element combined with high quality magnesium, hexahydrate. It's amazing stuff. If you're not using a topical magnesium, you really, really should. Everyone in the West is deficient in it. And then on top of the magnesium, which helps make your muscles function, it helps every cell replicate, helps your body repair itself. Then we just stack in anti-inflammatory oils. We got arnica, comfrey, calendula, St. John's wort, as well as some turmeric, lemongrass. Those are all anti-inflammatory, have a nice smell. And then the DMSO is the big differentiator. So this is not your icy hot. This is not your high school or your middle school football remedy of like Bengay or icy hot. You put on it, heats up, and you smell like a locker room all day. This stuff goes on. For me, I just tend to forget that whatever was bothering me is bothering me, but it's not about suppressing pain and erasing it. Pain is good. Pain is a signal that tells your body when it needs something, when something's not functioning properly. Maybe you're not moving. Maybe your biomechanics are off. So go see Lisa, get your biomechanics straight. And then while your body is rebuilding itself, Alleviate to help repair those muscles and repair those structures. Because comfrey, the Romans used it. They called it bone knit bone. And I think it probably goes back even earlier. But arnica is an ancient remedy that the Norse use. It's Eastern Europe. It grows really well. And we use it for soft tissue and bruising and all kinds of stuff. So there's so many uses for it. Put it on your shelf. It replaces like 6 different jars that you might have there. So amazing results with this. Let us know how you go with it online. You can always order Alleviate or any of our other products at naturalartform.com and save 10% off with the code NaturalAF10. And that's a discount code for all our listeners. As many times as you want to order, that code is there for you to get a discount every time. So you have special pricing if you're listeners to this show. And that's just our thank you for supporting us. Thank you for your time and attention. And is there any other announcements that we need to make?
While you're on the website, if you haven't already, join the mailing list. That's where we send all of our updates, sales, specials, events, where we're going to be. All that goes in the monthly newsletter. And I'm going to be hosting a workshop that's all about aligning your relationships using human design. That's going to be on the 29th of November, Australia time. So that'll be a Saturday morning. Anyone in the US, that'll be a Friday afternoon. So you will actually be able to catch that live, but it'll all be recorded. You'll get sent a replay after. So even if you can't catch it live or you just can't stay for the whole thing, that's absolutely fine. So I'd love to see you guys there if that's something you want to dive deeper into. Even if you're new to human design, come along, bring your chart, and I'll explain everything that you need to know, lay it all out. So please join my mailing list if you want to get more updates on that and more info on how to book in. I'm going to be sending that out very soon. So I'll put a link in the show notes. That'll take you to my website and you can join the mailing list there.
Brilliant. Really important stuff. Human design has really shaped our relationship in a very beneficial way right from the get-go. Understanding that has helped us just have a lot more love and compassion for each other before we ever, had a clash about our differences. Everybody's different. Human design is a way to help understand those differences and make the most of them. So
yeah. And for any parents listening, also like your relationships with your children.
yes,
so
it's not just relationship with the partners.
yeah,
family,
for any
coworker,
business relationships, especially if you have a business partner, how you guys can work more effectively together. But yeah, especially if you're a parent listening, or if you and your partner want to come together but bring your kids' human design charts, it really is a game changer when it comes to different dynamics and just how to navigate them.
Now, if you want to bring your chart and you don't have it, where can they go to get a chart so they can have it ready for the workshop?
Well, when you book in, I'll send all the details out. So that's why it's imperative to join the mailing list, because all those details will go out via email, where you can get your chart from, what to bring with you on the day, and yeah, how to come prepared.
And about how long is the workshop?
It's going to be 4 hours. So it'll be 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here,
Wow.
which will be depending on, depending on your time zone. I know Pacific time is like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So, and then 4 hours.
Very good. All right. Yes, definitely mark a calendar, show up for that. And without further ado, let's get into this very interesting conversation with the lovely Lisa Faiman.
Let's do it.
Lisa Faiman, born in Japan and raised in Southern California, is a Harvard graduate who overcame a decade of depression and toxic pharmaceuticals through spirituality and mind-body practices. After an 8-year discipleship with a Himalayan monk studying meditation and Sanskrit-based philosophy, she was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which she successfully reversed by training her body and mind. This impossible healing inspired Lisa to start coaching others as a personal trainer, which led to her obtaining many more certifications under her belt, but her philosophy is not encompassed by any singular man-made system. She coined the term regenerative fitness to describe her unique approach to training, which seeks to realign men and women with their innate God-given design. In 2023, Lisa took a break from her coaching to freebirth her daughter, becoming a mother at the age of 43. She recently relaunched her coaching services with the Heavenly Bodyz app, an online community and training platform designed to assist in optimizing the mind-body terrain through exercise, education, and the power of storytelling.
All right, well, welcome back to the show, Lisa Faiman. It's an honor to have you on here again.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I'm very grateful and absolutely thrilled to be on your show. Thank you.
Yeah.
So great to have you, Lisa. I said to Isaac, at some stage we do have to get all the original guests on so that I get to interview them too.
Yeah. And for those that aren't aware, so the first 10 or 11 episodes, it was me. I started this back in my house in Wyoming, the podcast. And
2.5 years ago? Almost 3 years ago, actually.
Yeah. Something like that. And it was good. We had a great conversation. I remember bits and pieces about what we talked about. We talked about your some of your health challenges, with your condition for hyperflexibility, hypermobility, and then how you used strength and conditioning to come back from that and to I guess give your body more resilience. And talked a lot about health. I don't remember if we talked much about the bears and all that because actually, I don't know if we did that story, because a lot of times at bear meetups, people will be like, "Oh, like how did you find Owen, Benjamin? Like how did you meet the bears?" And I don't know. We could start there, or we could start earlier on with.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm always interested how people come to the bears.
Yeah, what was your introduction like? What was the yeah?
I first became aware of Owen when he was going through his flat Earth discovery phase, and he started posting things related to that on like Instagram and other places, or I forget exactly which platform it was that I was exposed to it, probably Instagram though. And I was like, oh, this guy, that's cool that he is having this open public epiphany, if you will. And I know you guys just had a guest on who was talking about, globe skepticism and things like that. And I just really, so that's kind of how he came onto my radar. And then I didn't really start regularly kind of listening to streams and stuff like that until I don't know, probably like in the 2020 when stuff was getting really crazy. And like, I think a lot of people were just tuning in to hear a real, but still, funny and interesting take on what's going on, and how to be focused on solutions and how to be focused on community. And I thought that was really cool. And then when the app started, I was on board, like immediately when the Beartaria Times app came on, I was in there and just like looking to connect with other people who were on a similar wavelength and wanting to, again, focus on solutions, focus on building something instead of sitting around acting like a victim and complaining that, lizards are trying to inject everyone with experimental medical treatments. And find a way to laugh. And like Owen's funny, and he's a comedian. And I think a lot of the controversy that comes up around him often comes from a lot of people just put him on a pedestal and try to make him play a role that he's not looking to play. He's not proselytizing some specific dogma or worldview or philosophy or cult. And I think his sense of humor, even about that, those accusations that he's like some crazy cult leader, extremist, and, I made incredible friendships within the bear community, went to some bear meetups here in Southern California, but definitely really formed meaningful, deep friendships with a lot of bears out in Missouri. And that's where I was planning to settle down before the roundhouse kick to the face from life redirected me into another direction. And I'm now back in Orange County, but
tell me about it. I'm in Australia now. I got freaking punted.
That was like a triple. You got like triple kick
like
to
Chuck
the face.
Norris. Yeah,
to be sent into another quote unquote hemisphere.
Another realm entirely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when Isaac first had you on, you had just gotten married and were pregnant with your daughter.
Yeah.
We now know your daughter's a toddler, so lots changed.
Yeah.
But I mean, even if you want to go as far back as that, because in that episode, you guys talked about a lot of sort of your area of expertise, but we didn't really get a lot of your journey. So I'd love to hear like a bit about your personal journey and sort of what led you to this path that you're on now, and in the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm a manifesting generator, and my story is kind of all over the place and draws from like there's been a lot of versions of me. Yeah. I joke that like I'm on Lisa version 7.3 right now, like I'm constantly updating my, like who I am, what I believe. And it's, it's an exciting journey if you don't mind the constant changing. The twists and turns. It's a pretty, roundabout journey to this point. Cause I started, I attended Harvard University, and I was very really enmeshed in mainstream liberal Southern California culture. And then moving into Harvard University, I think then there was additionally this layer of like elitist, arrogant, indoctrinated mentality that kind of descended on my psyche too. And like Harvard was a chapter that was really dark for me. Like it was really dark and sad, and like I was extremely depressed. I have inklings that there was some weird, I don't know, MK Ultra-ish style programming that I was exposed to through my experience there.
What were you going to study?
I studied visual and environmental studies. My plan was always to be an actress from the time I was very young. I loved acting. It was something that I excelled at. I always got the part. I always won the award. I was like sought after to be part of productions, and so I always thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. and then attending Harvard, I had very close relationships with people with very big ties to Hollywood and involvement in the entertainment industry, friends who, worked for huge agencies and wrote for big television shows. And so I always thought, well, yeah, of course I'm going to make it. Like, I'm just going to be an actress, and then I'll go to Harvard, make good connections, get a good general education, and then go to Hollywood and live in LA, which I did when I left Harvard. But when I attended Harvard my freshman year, I descended into this super dark, intense season of suicidal depression that lasted nearly a decade. I mean, pretty much a decade. I had been put on Prozac at the age of 16. So
Wow.
I was already, I think, spiritually and psychically compromised by exposure to an SSRI. You guys have had Jerry Marzinski on, who I'm such a huge fan of his work.
Yes.
And his knowledge around how pharmaceuticals are really used to, in a way, almost like make people more spiritually perforated so that negative entities and parasitic entities can interfere with them. So I was like under demonic attack, to put it simply, from the age of around 18, when I was put back on these SSRIs, again, when I was at Harvard, along with several other medications, and ended up being hospitalized. I was put in the psychiatric ward twice during my time at Harvard for suicidal depression because I was so close to killing myself. And in some ways, I think that was like the plan, was that I would kill myself. At least the plan, meaning from the viewpoint of the demonic interference that I think that I was dealing with. Yeah. And that I was exposed to.
It's probably a side effect of whatever drugs they put you on as well. Like, it's literally on there.
That's why I said, like, we spoke about it again on another episode more recently. It was after we had Jerry Marzinski on. I think it was Julie Santel, actually. And we were talking, I 100% believe that pharmaceutical drugs are black magic, especially the ones that are in the realm of the psychiatric medications. And it's actually just really funny listening to your story, Lisa, because I was first diagnosed with depression at 16. And that was the first thing they did. It was actually Lexapro was very new on the market at that time. And I was there with my mum, and the doctor said, like, oh, would you want to take this? And we were like, no. And then I had to do like an assessment by myself with a doctor. And she actually gave me a trial pack, like before giving me a prescription. Oh, just try them. And my mum took it home, looked at the packet insert. One of the first side effects was suicidal ideation. She said, why would I ever give that to my 16-year-old daughter when that's one of the first listed side effects? And it's like, how can these people, like, why would you ever put something on the market to depressed people that could cause them to commit suicide? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Why would they? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Exactly.
Does it? If we really stop and think about it, right?
Exactly.
And the real question should be, why aren't people reading the inserts? Because it's all there, because they have to disclose that information. They're required to, I think, both legally and in the law, the spiritual realm too. There's a disclosure that needs to happen for them to believe they're escaping through some sort of, spiritual loophole, some karmic loophole there. But it is unfortunate that more people don't just read the inserts, like read the information that's given to you, that's handed to you. Well, not in all cases. I mean, there are certain medical treatments that parents especially are not given full information and disclosure from their physicians, but parents should look into the fact that physicians are receiving financial compensation from pharmaceutical companies in the realm of like 20, 30K, sometimes more, 40, 50, like huge amounts of money, sometimes like an entire salary's worth of bonus money that is being given to doctors to maintain the status quo, to maintain a certain number of patients who will allow for themselves to be injected with toxins, essentially.
We just learned something recently, very recently, that in Australia, because a little bit of a different setup, like the States to Australia, just in terms of the medical system. And I don't think they receive the same kickbacks in the way that Americans do. I think they probably do, but it probably comes through the government, not the pharmaceutical companies directly. But we just learned recently that in Australia, the GPs get some sort of bonus every time they just ask if you'd like a vaccine, which is really interesting because we couldn't for the life of us understand why my grandmother's doctor, she'd said she's been saying no for the last 4 years. And he still asks every time. And apparently that's why. So every visit, if they ask, they get a bonus.
Well, I mean, it's an offer, right? It's just an offer, which
exactly.
I think it's important to remember that. But yeah,
God, it reminds me of working at Target. I used to work at Target. Was it my first job? It was the first job I got fired from. And the credit card applications, we didn't get bonuses like the doctors do, but we were constantly being harped on if we're at the checkout counter. You have to ask every customer if they want to use their red card or whatever the credit card is. And if they don't have it, you got to ask, But I'm like, so basically doctors are like a Target checkout person. They're just here to help you buy shit that the company, the corporation wants you to buy.
Well, it's a pretty good tactic if you think about it, because that's what wears people down. Like if you've said no and then you keep going back and they keep asking you, I'm sure there's a huge percentage of people that will just go, oh, okay, fine. Like they just get sick of being asked.
Yeah.
Sorry, docs. We're gonna lay into you, until you guys shape up.
There's no holding back on this show.
Well, I mean, doctors really, very, in a very real sense, nearly killed me, with the medications that I was given. And, I was a minor when I was first given these antidepressants. And so it was not fully within my control being exposed to these chemicals. But I'm rewriting the story. So you mentioned I was pregnant when we talked last, and then I'm just making very different choices for my daughter and doing the best I can with the knowledge that I have now, and the sense of responsibility that I have to do my due diligence and look into things, and then make informed decisions about her healthcare, which is really troubling, or not troubling. It's very stressful at times because I'm currently in a situation where I am living with family that has a totally different perspective on health and raising children. And so my plans of, homeschool, completely, wild, feral childhood for my daughter has been redirected into, Southern Orange County suburbia. And this area was, we have a lot of conservatives compared to the rest of California in general, but it's still California. And this area, when we were going through, Cooties 19, this area completely rolled over, and just everyone was, afraid and just filled with fear and going along with whatever they were told. And it was just, I wasn't planning to come back here to raise my daughter. And I don't know if I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, because Lord knows, I think I have my plans figured out, and God reboots me sometimes, not so gently, but always for my highest good. And I absolutely trust in that and believe in that. And my daughter is amazing, and being a mom is like, it's the coolest thing. It's like, it's so fun. Like seeing my little kid run around, and, she's learning, someone recently told me they refer to it as the teachable twos instead of the terrible twos, because their minds are so open. And I think that's great. I think it's important to be careful about the language we use around
totally
our children, of course, so telling them they're terrible. It's funny too. That's another thing, like living with well-meaning, but still boomer parents, where they're like, you're a naughty girl, and like,
Right.
you shouldn't do that. That's very naughty. You're bad. Like, I'm just kind of like, well, can we,
Yeah.
maybe reassess how we approach toddler behavior when, it's like she hasn't fully formed her prefrontal, cortex here. So like, maybe we'll just go easy on the telling her she's bad and,
Exactly.
Yeah, especially,
really
up
scary.
until the age of, I've looked at so many different things. Arguably the age of 7 could be up to 12, but either way, those formative years in childhood, that's literally when the subconscious mind is like a sponge. Like it's taking in everything and it's forming beliefs and forming values and that's how we get conditioned. And that's the stuff, like that's what I work with. And that's the stuff that's like really, especially in the much younger years, like we don't consciously remember most of that. And so that's the stuff that we're holding on to and still living from in so many ways. It's kind of living deep, dark in the unconscious, but it's there. And so those things that, and it's crazy how things change so much, generation to generation. Because even my parents' generation was like nowhere near, as bad as their parents, when they were raising them, but it was still like, we still got threatened that we were going to get smacked and things like that. And it definitely has an impact later on in life. And you may not necessarily see it. It's not very obvious a lot of the time, but definitely has an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think it's really enlightening to see how much or how important it is for me to maintain a regulated nervous system, for my daughter to be able to just
100%
regulate her emotions and not freak out about small things and adding to it. What I experienced as a child often was a parent kind of like adding to the fire, where it's like I'm already freaking out and upset and can't control my emotions and having a hard time. And then it's like, well, why are you having a hard time? I'll give you a reason to have a hard time. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a little bit different how we have learned, right? At least what I've learned is that it's essential for a child to feel attached, connected, safe with their primary caregiver. And if the message that they're constantly receiving is that like, I'm having big emotions and that's going to create a negative response from the most important person to me. So there's all this conflict around just not being able to manage the emotions, either suppressing them. And of course, we all know that that's not even really possible, right? So it'll come out in different ways or manifest as other issues. So I'm just focusing on having connection, attachment, emotional nervous system regulation with my daughter, and just loving on her, trying to understand her as best I can, not treating her. I think a friend of mine said something that was really cool, where she was saying that she hopes to teach her sons that they are worthy of apologies when she messes up, which is something that she never experienced as a child, and was always, treated as though you're always in the wrong. Respect your parents who are always, perfect. And even when they obviously mess up, they're certainly not going to apologize to you over it, right? Or admit to their faults.
Right.
And so that's something that I'm really focusing on not carrying on into my relationship with my daughter, and to hopefully be honest that sometimes I make mistakes too. It's important. It's important not to place anyone too high on a pedestal. Kind of like we were talking about before with, communities, people who make idols of things. That's just a common theme. And some of the stuff that I talk about, Isaac and I think one of the things I remember from our first conversation together was I talked about astrology and how I think it's important to not make an idol of astrology, and that part of my time spent with a guru who taught meditation, Sanskrit-based philosophy. He was a very intense believer in the truth in astrology, and so it was kind of used for everything. Like any decision that had to be made, the stars had to be consulted. And like, I don't know, I thought when I left that culture, I decided that was not something I wished to continue participating in, because, but we can do that with anything. Right. And we can make idols bones. Truly of anything.
I just carry a creepy bag of bones with me everywhere I go, and I'm like, all right, hold on, let me check with the bones. I shake them and I
Well, we always say that here. It's like you can have too much of a good thing, and it's like when anything becomes dogmatic, whether it's diet, and health food, or if it's things like astrology, and like even, I work with human design. And one of the things I love about human design, and I always preface, like when I do a reading for a client, like I always preface it with, it's actually called the human design experiment, and you're meant to experiment with it. Don't take it as this dogmatic, like this is what I am, and it puts you in a box. And it's like Ra always said, like the founder of human design, he always said, like, take what works and leave what doesn't. Like if there's things in your chart that don't resonate with you, don't worry about them. So I think it's so important for people to approach like everything with that, because you definitely see people, I'm guilty of the Mercury retrograde thing, but then people start to blame, those things for everything, like
I never experienced it. Like Mercury retrograde for me is like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, I don't even think that's Mercury. The one that everyone points to. Oh, that's Mercury. That's the one.
Well, it's just an energetic. Well, it's funny. I don't look at astrology stuff. I feel it. Like stuff will happen, and then someone will be like, "Oh, yeah, there was a full moon eclipse," and I'm like, "Oh, that's why I've been so emotional." Or like,
I've noticed that.
I feel stuff, and then after the fact, people will tell me things that are happening astrologically. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense now.
Well, every time I come back home after a full moon, covered in blood, there's a dead deer on the front porch, and I'm like, this astrology thing is kind of real. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I don't actually just go nuts on a full moon, but I've been aware of that for years. But the thing I was going to say about with kids, it's helpful to know some of that. Like astrology is kind of helpful. It gives you an idea, like what am I dealing with here? If you really get into it, you can sort of predict behavior. That can be useful, but you don't want to like you said, it gives you like, this is a sampling of like what's possible, but it's just
it's a potential. Yeah.
So if you start projecting that onto the children, they will, they'll just do what they're expected to do. And that was something I learned years ago before I got into any of the esoteric stuff, was the expectations you place on the children is what they're going to manifest.
Yeah.
And they did a study with that in kindergarten classes, where they had a teacher that was told that these kids were lower IQ, special ed, like not very intelligent. And then they taught the class, and then they were the same, just normal kids, which is a terrible experiment to do on kids. And then they had another teacher that was told that their kids were very bright and gifted, and they were just normal average kids. And I don't know how long they ran the experiment, but after that experiment, the kids where the teacher had the expectation that they were lower intelligence, all of their grades showed it, and all their behaviors showed it. Behavioral issues, bad behavior, whatever.
Well, just look at the mainstream schooling system. It's pretty evident.
Yeah. And that challenge, like whenever you're faced with something, especially when you're kind of like what you're dealing with, when life doesn't prepare you, it just throws you into this like chaos thing. That's why it's important to have like good self-talk and just have this openness and a connection to a higher power that you have faith in, because it's like, if you don't have this expectation that like, oh, this is all that I'm worthy of, or this is all that I'm capable of, but you're connected to a higher power that's like, no, he can bring me up here, even higher. I have no idea what the limit is. Then you have more potential, more possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you brought up a full moon eclipse. My daughter was born on a full moon eclipse.
Oh, wow.
During my labor spanned over the course of a full moon eclipse. So she's very, cool. She's a very amazing, intense, wonderful little soul. So yeah.
Moon child. She's a moon child.
Yeah. With, another guest of ours, Jake. So he's from Nowhere Bear. Super funny guy, but they just had their first baby, and it was a full moon. I don't know if it was the eclipse actually, but No, not an eclipse, but it was definitely a full moon. As soon as that hit labor, he sent us screenshots of his phone. It was like, that's funny, man. You got a moon child.
Moon child.
Yeah. And I was in labor for about 33 hours. So she's a Illuminati confirmed moon child.
My gosh.
Yeah.
This child, there's something, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's special.
We're doing the signals,
seed.
guys.
Where have you been, my star seed?
So I'm
That's fun.
in the process of mentally preparing myself for as she gets older and just like probably astonishes me in various ways. So I want to, but I'm just really focusing on just cultivating a great experience with her and a great connection and relationship always. And I think that started from birth. I really focused on giving her the best birth that I could possibly provide her with. And also myself as well, in that equation. But I really wanted to not expose her to certain things that I felt like I was exposed to as a infant, as a baby, and in utero that I didn't want my daughter to be exposed to, because I believed it would be to her benefit. And so I had a wild pregnancy. I didn't, the only test that I did two tests. I did a pregnancy test and I did a blood test to determine the gender ahead of time. Because my now ex-husband was very interested in wanting to know the gender ahead of time. And he
so they
even
do that
said
with a blood test? I thought you could only do that with
a blood test.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. They're testing for the presence of, at least the explanation I was given is that in the blood, if they detect male DNA, they know that the child is a male. Whereas if it's a female, then there will be no indication of that. So the absence of that genetic material is will indicate that there's a girl. So
it's funny how the only two options are male and female.
Funny that.
Yeah.
They need to be canceled immediately, this testing facility. But how dare they only provide me with those two options? But
where are they getting the blood from? Is it from you or from the...
From me, yeah.
Okay.
So they send you this like little lancet and test tube where you provide them with your blood, and I'm sure they do.
So if you had
some
male
interesting
blood,
things
then maybe
with
you were right. Maybe the trans are right. If they tested your blood and they got some male in there. Then...
Oh.
So if it wasn't for your daughter's father wanting to know the gender, would you have tested for it?
Probably not.
I'm not. I keep saying that. I feel like I'm going to know, and I love surprises. So I'm like, I've never wanted to know what my baby's going to be until it comes out.
Yeah. He wanted time to process potential disappointment before the baby was there, because he wanted a boy. So but he's turned around since. Our daughter is adorable and irresistible, and obviously he loves her very much. So, but he did want to know ahead of time. It actually made preparing a little easier. I could purchase. I didn't want to just purchase like gender neutral everything, or
that's a good point.
So I made sure she had lots of very cute girly pink outfits and accessories, and but
that's fun.
So we didn't do ultrasound, we didn't do any of that, and I gave birth to her at home. I chose not to have a medical midwife present. I attended the birth of a friend of mine, a friend who was part of the bear community, and she invited me to her birth, which was really sacred. Like, that's such an honor to be at someone's birth. Have you? I don't know if either of you have ever attended. Well, Isaac, you have a daughter. Were you at her birth?
Yeah. It was in the hospital. It was very surgical. It wasn't a C-section, but it was very gown up, head scarf, booties on,
Yeah.
like
Wow.
Yeah. Treat it as a medical event. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I really wanted it to be, again, just wanting to create the best possible experience for myself and for my daughter, wanted it very much to be a spiritual surrender to God, to, you know, to God's will, and to allow him to deliver my child. And so I had women, I attended the birth of my friend, and she had a midwife, and I saw what it was like to have a midwife there. So even though I think home birth is a great option, I'm not here to like evangelize for free birth or wild pregnancies or any of that. That was my choice. That was my experience. That is the direction I went to after intense amounts of prayer and asking for guidance and asking for the Holy Spirit to show me the best path forward. Because I didn't want to make an idol of free birth either, because there is a lot of like weird political dogma that goes into the discussion from some free birth resources. And it's like free birth is the only way. If you have any kind of medical intervention, you failed, it's wrong. It's bad.
Own your child, the Vatican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I think every mother, especially during pregnancy, because we're so spiritually and energetically permeable in that time when we are gestating this new life. Life is being created in our womb. We are preparing to be a portal between realms for this child to transit through, right? So it's really important to like honor that space and honor the guidance that and the intuition of the mother. I believe that's my belief. And that it's the mother and the baby who are fused together during that time. So in a lot of ways, it's how does the baby want to be born? And perhaps the way the baby needs to be born is not in alignment with maybe some dogma or some rigid way of thinking that the mother has attached herself to. So she's going to have to let go of that through the process. And, you know, that's a perfect example of the way in which motherhood forces you to continually just let go, surrender. And so the process of the birth was amazing. I invited women to my birth to support me. I had a birth team. I feel they were my birth team. They weren't there as hired midwives. They were there as friends and sisters, you know, especially sisters in Christ, women who I felt had a strong relationship with Jesus, who were powerful in prayer, who lived righteous, beautiful lives, who had maybe some of them had free birthed themselves. And they were amazing. They were just amazing support. And we had Christian hypnobirthing affirmations and verses playing in the background and worship music and music that a friend had recorded, especially for the baby and for the labor. And so just, I tried to, again, create this optimal space where I could surrender to God. And I even wrote I kind of gave a debrief to the birth support team that was coming. I had wrote out like all the boundaries and requests that I had and how I wanted things to go. And because I just really, again, wanted to take control of that space as best I could. I wanted to take control of it so that I could surrender it to God. And that's what I, you know, wrote about. And so I just asked like that if there does seem to be the need for a transfer, or that like, because I wasn't in a mindset where I'm going to avoid the hospital no matter what happens. That wasn't my approach to birth. My approach to birth was, I feel called to free birth. I believe my body and my spirit are aligned with that path for birth. And that's what I'm choosing, because I feel that that's where God is guiding me, and that the Holy Spirit is guiding me in that direction. And I will be prepared to surrender that idea if events shift in such a way that I'm receiving the message that I need to go to the hospital, something's wrong, that free birth and lack of medical intervention is not the way. I was willing to let that go because I'm not making an idol of free birth. I'm not saying that's the only way to give birth. Honestly, I think some women are biomechanically unable to carry out the physiological process of birth. This is an unfortunate reality. I don't think that's an issue with God's design. It's how our current mainstream Western lifestyle has shifted the way that our bodies actually move. And within the process of birth, you need movement in the pelvis. You need to have movement in that lower spine. It's like, man, things are stretched apart and rearranged. Like the parts need to move, right? So if you're jammed up, you're stuck. You might need medical intervention and that's part of, I think, the controversy that has emerged around certain free birth resources. There's a main one. I don't want to get into names or whatever, calling people out, but there is a main source of information on free birth currently that is facing a lot of criticism because they emphasize the fact correctly that birth is a natural physiological process. It is not a medical event, and our bodies were designed to give birth. Beautiful. What needs to be additionally looked at in that picture is the fact that just like our gait pattern, like we're designed to walk a certain way, to transfer energy through our body a certain way. Most people that I've observed don't even walk correctly, at least through the lens of what is natural biomechanical design. So just like walking is a natural physiological process that we're designed to do, most people can't even perform it correctly, right? Or a full squat, a full deep resting squat. Most people, a lot of people have lost the ability in mainstream Western culture, right? A lot of Asians are still able to squat pretty good. They're keeping it real over there in Asia.
But he's a guy. Yeah. He's a good friend.
Well, and
what about high heels though?
That's definitely not good for you. I wore
high
heels for
heels are
years.
disastrous.
If you can squat
disastrous for women.
You can do
Actually,
it.
It's easier to squat sometimes in high heels because it elevates the heel, which allows for a lot of people have fascial restriction and can't go into a squat with their feet flat. Myself included. I spent many, many years exclusively wearing high heeled shoes. Like I had a thing about it. I was like, my body doesn't look correctly proportioned when I wear flats. I need to always wear heels. So
short girl problems. I feel you. I got it.
And I am absolutely positive that I did a lot of damage to the fascia, especially my lower legs, my calves. My calves became really problematic because of all the years that I spent wearing those shoes, and it impacts your pelvic floor. Everything's connected. Fascia is a web. So you mess with one part, it's going to affect the whole show.
Yeah. And just going back to birth and like the, certain issues, one thing that I think that often gets quite overlooked as well, and I only am aware of this because of this horror story that I was told when I was studying nutrition, studying the body, that one of our lecturers told that I will never forget. Long story short, the woman was probably my height, so 5'2", and her partner was 7 foot. And she was like all natural, didn't want to do ultrasounds, didn't do anything. Her baby was like, I don't know what pounds are. Like we use pounds as well, but I can't remember what's like a heavy baby.
Anything
like
more than
7 pounds? Is that heavy? Is that a big baby?
8 pounds would be kind of average, like we're kind of normal.
No, I was close to 10
11.
pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was a big baby and long, but they didn't know because she'd not done any ultrasounds. And
because they couldn't tell by looking at him. It's like probably going to be a big baby.
You can measure the belly.
Yeah. Well, they had no idea. And she had this horrific birth and it tore, I think, her urethra or something. She ended up with this really rare condition that happened, like a nerve condition that happens from that. Anyway. And so that this lecturer, her advice was, I'm all for the natural route, but just do at least one ultrasound. I'm like, well, if you didn't have that massive height difference, it probably wouldn't matter. But I think that's a huge consideration too. There's so much like cross-pollination now in terms of like ethnicities and like, you know, where we're from, the lands that we're from. And that's going to carry very different, not just physiology, but like different genetic patterns and things like that. And I think that's another thing that contributes to like potential like issues with birth that often gets overlooked as well. I just think that
would be an interesting study to look into if they've done difficulty of birth in homogenous communities like Asian communities that are like Japan or wherever versus the more intermixed stuff. Because every little thing matters. It's not whether it's right or wrong. It's just like,
it's just considerations. Yeah. And I love what you said too about, you know, that like I'm all for that where, you know, you can have the plan to, and I've heard stories of women that, you know, wanted to do the home birth and all of that. And they had to go to the hospital. Like there was complications.
Yeah. My brother and his wife did that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's very practical. And you're right. When people start to like demonize like anything medical and that's wrong and you're not free birth, you're not doing it right. Absolutely.
Because all that stuff about, like if you don't do it this way perfectly, you failed somehow. Like if that's the connotation or if they directly say that, it's still based in fear.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to have a healthy, happy, protected child in a war zone, in a hospital, like delivered by.
Yeah. And this is, I think, part of the danger of getting advice from influencers who are using sometimes very radical language to elicit fear so that you'll buy their program, their book, their subscribe to their podcast, you know, and sometimes what they put out is influenced by a desire to sell, and fear sells. Fear really sells. Like, look at all the detox and parasite cleanses and the, you know, even within the red pilled, I know better than to take pharmaceuticals. I'm going to take this zeolite and ivermectin and like whatever. And,
I'm going to stare at the sun.
Yeah. And it also just, it fully feeds into the pendulum swing that people tend to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did a hospital birth and it was horrible. Oh, now I have to go to the other extreme and I can't, there's no other way. I'm never going back to the hospital. And I just think that's really, it's quite foolish. And again, it's just so limiting. You know, there's infinite possibilities as to how things can go. But I also love what you said about, because I'm like, I have always envisioned, maybe not always because I didn't want to have kids for most of my life, but certainly in the last few years, I've envisioned like my birth to also have like other women there. Cause I just really feel like, I think a lot of the way forward is actually looking back at the way that our ancestors lived. And that was very normal. The women would all come together and they would support the woman going through birth, and you'd have different generations of women and you'd have the wisdom of the elders and all of this. And like, that's what I've envisioned. But I also love how you set that space up, because I think that women, you can also do that in a hospital setting. Yeah. And a lot of women don't do that. You can take control of that space and be very firm about what it is that you want and don't want. Now, yeah, I can see you shaking your head because obviously it's very, it's very, and it is very dependent on what hospital you're at. If you have an OBGYN.
Which doctor happens to be, you know, working at that particular time, the staff of nurses, because it can be an incredibly antagonistic, difficult environment, a hostile environment for the mother in some cases, and not always. Yeah.
And I think you guys get much more of that in the States. I think they're a lot more. We get that here too, but like generally if you say no, like even if they pressure you, they're not really gonna like, but that's the thing. You just
other things.
You just got to stand your ground.
Business elsewhere. It's a business.
Yeah.
So check it out beforehand if you have time, but then take your business elsewhere if they're assholes.
Yeah.
Because there's birthing centers now that are actually like hospital staffed, but it's designed around you know, as much as they can in a medical setting to have a more holistic style birth. Yeah. Water bath type things and all that.
Totally.
Find something
but sometimes there are emergencies where you are just simply dealt the hand that you are dealt with your care providers, and they may or may not be receptive to what you have chosen to do. Especially there's many stories of women who go into the hospital following the attempt of a free birth that doesn't go the way they planned. They seek medical assistance and they're treated as though they were like at home trying to kill their baby. Right. Yeah. And like doing something unthinkable and horrific. And they're treated like criminals and negligent parents right from the get-go, even though they may be extremely thoughtful, like, intelligent, wonderful, good-hearted people who have the right intention, but something didn't go the way they planned and they ended up in a medical situation. And so there's so many possibilities. And that is why I do not tell other women what is right for them. That is something that they have to decide, and that has to sometimes really just be decided in that moment. And that's why I was just wanting to stay as focused as I possibly could be on God and what is God's will, what is his plan, because I know his plans are greater than mine. So, Jesus, take the wheel. And if that put me in the hospital and I decided I needed to see a doctor and something was wrong, I would have gone that route. At least I think I would have. But fortunately, I did not have to. My daughter was born without complication. I barely even tore. I don't think I did at all. Like it was like, it took a long time. It was uncomfortable. I vomited a lot. Like actually,
oh, wow.
I had a birth pool, which I probably wouldn't do again because I've started looking into considering some of the critique around using a birthing pool. For some women, it's great. I have friends who have a birthing pool company. I'm not trying to bash birthing pools. But I definitely felt it kind of slow down my labor. I feel like because it is a good way to alleviate some of the discomfort of labor. It can, not with all women, I'm just speaking to my experience, I felt like it slowed things down and I had to get out, but I thought I was in transition. Like I thought I was like, oftentimes a sign that you're in transition and the baby is about to make their entrance is that you'll vomit. And so I started vomiting while I was in the birth pool. So I was like, okay, it's like any second now. And then things kind of slowed down. My contractions started to space apart. I continued to vomit, but like, I felt like I wasn't making progress. And so I used like a birth sling. So like really like focusing on squatting down and like moving position. And I think that's another thing that's really important for women that's absent in a lot of hospitals, not all, some birthing centers are great and have lots of like stools and balls and space for the mother to kind of like move around and move her body, because it is a very physically intense experience to give birth to a baby. And it's like, you have to get into your body and move. I definitely think movement is part of the process. And like, we're not supposed to just be like strapped to a bed and our feet in stirrups and just kind of like laying there under the bright artificial lights, waiting for, the doctor to tell us when to push. And So, and then, friends held my hand. The thing was that I really needed to be careful that it didn't take so long that I started to get dehydrated, because I was like, okay, if I just can't keep any fluids down and I'm just like constantly vomiting. I had a great support team. They were always there with like I made huge jars of like homemade electrolyte drinks, to keep me hydrated throughout the process. And, like my friends are checking on like, when was the last time you peed? And like, all this stuff. And like, like I knew I couldn't do that forever, but I'd had malaria one time when I went to India, and that was awful. Like that was that was so much worse than being in labor. So like vomiting in labor, I was like, because at least I would get breaks from it, you know, and I'd be like, okay. But I was like, oh yeah. And it was funny. I used that as like a little resilience technique when labor and the contractions were especially uncomfortable. I'd be like, but you know, malaria was so much worse. Oh yeah, that was awful. Like I made it through that. This is no problem. So
yeah. And I think like what you're speaking to as well, because I didn't know that was like a thing, like vomiting before, like that's a way to know that the baby's coming. Cause I'm like, oh, please, I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hate throwing up. But anyway, but it's important, I think, to know, like, even in like the home birth, free birth, like all of that, I think women often too, like, again, it's almost like that pendulum swing of like, oh, the hospital birth, it's so traumatic. But it's like, even in a home setting where you're doing things your way. And I heard someone say this once, and it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, that's so true. It's like birth is a trauma. Like it's meant to be this, like, not as in like it's a bad trauma, but it's a huge process that you've got to go through.
It's a rite of passage.
And so birth
initiation.
And so like birth being traumatic. Yeah, they weren't talking about it in a sense of like, oh, you're traumatized for life because you had birth, or like the baby is. But it's like even for the baby to come from like this spirit realm into the 3D, like that's traumatic. Like that's a huge thing.
Definitely.
And, you know, I think that's also just like, to be really realistic, it's like, you've got to know that there's all these things that can happen that are going to be uncomfortable and unpleasant. But it's definitely a rite of passage, and you can do it. Like, I think that's a huge like thing for first time mothers, is like, the first time is often the hard, like you said, it was uncomfortable and it took a really long time. And I think most often you'll hear like the longest labors are the first birth, like when a woman's giving birth for the first time, because there is going to be a little bit of resistance and maybe a little bit of fear. And like, that's going to slow things down, because if you're in fear, you're contracting. And but quite often you hear the subsequent births, you know, piece of cake, or, you know, really quick, you know, depending on the person. And, and I think that builds that resilience within women, you know, especially as a mother, where you're just like, I did that. I can do this. Like, if you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes like that's exactly what happened with my brother and myself. My brother was a very difficult birth, and my mother was in labor for like 48 hours. We were born in Japan.
Oh, wow.
So, and my mother's Japanese, and talk about like a hybrid baby, right? So like my dad is American, white, Caucasian, and he, not that he's like an especially huge man. He's certainly not 7 feet tall. He's like probably only like 10% Nephilim, not like 30. But he's like, you know, so my brother was a huge baby. And in Japan at that time, they don't use their medical system is a bit different, thankfully. And so she wasn't given all like the drugs and the craziness, but she was in labor for such a long time with such a huge baby. My mother is very small and petite. She's a very tiny little Japanese lady. And my brother was so big. I think he was close to 10, like around 10 pounds.
Wow.
Which is a big baby. And my daughter was not that big. She was like 7 pounds. And so they had to like use like a suction cup on him. And I think it was very traumatic for him. It was traumatic for my mother. But when I was born, my dad, like the story goes that my dad got my brother, who's 2 years older than me, into the cab because they thought, well, they just admitted my mother to the hospital. It's going to be a while. Like last time it took 2 days. So, you know, we can go somewhere. So he had just gotten my older brother into the taxi with him and had left the hospital, and then gets a call at some point, gets the message that I was born. And he has to come back. And my mom said it felt like it was 15 minutes. Like I was so fast. So I think, again, it's like, and I think maybe birth order plays into that a little bit around like, what type of birth do we experience? What is the type of birth, the birth story that the child is choosing as well? So maybe, you know, for some of us, it's the long, arduous birth, and maybe there's some sort of pattern there connected with tendencies for firstborn children and what that story is about, or who knows. I mean, there's so many interesting things to contemplate around that.
Yeah, I have a theory. I love hearing people's birth stories, and then we often do this in my family where we'll like go over the birth stories, and then we like look at the characteristics that we've carried out through life. Like my mum was in labor with me for like 25 hours, and I was born like 25 minutes before the 6th of May, which would have been my grandfather's birthday, was his birthday. And so he was like, just wait a little bit more. She's like, I've been in labor for 25 hours. I just want to get her out. And so I was born at like right before midnight. And I'm also born, and I'm a Taurus sun. And that's me. I've carried that through life where I'm like, I just like to do things in my own time. I don't like being rushed. I'm just going to come when I'm ready. And then my brother was actually born feet first. And we always say like, that's my brother. He's a Cancer sun like Isaac. And I feel like that's a very Cancerian trait where they just kind of jump in with both feet. Like, don't really think about anything. Just, let's just do it. And it's so interesting to hear that, like, I've found a pattern where I've hardly ever come across anyone that can't correlate something from their birth story to like characteristics that they've carried out through life. But I think it's also really important to, like for me, I actually had this experience when I was doing my NLP training where we were doing timeline therapy, and you go through like the 5 major negative emotions. And when I got to fear, when I went back to the timeline, I went back to my birth. And there was a lot of fear around my birth because my mum, still to this day, she's not great with pain. She doesn't have a very high pain threshold. She gets very anxious with pain. And so 25 hours in labor for her was, first baby. She didn't know what to expect. And again, like going back to that, the fear, when you're in fear, you're going to be contracting. So labor's not, it's going to be really slow. And in this timeline therapy process, I went back to being in the womb, and I actually like rebirthed myself, and I separated from that fear. It was something I was carrying with me. And so, those things I think are so important to, again, we talk about birth, our really early years of childhood that we don't consciously remember. We're still carrying stuff from that throughout our lives. And it can be really interesting to look at. Yeah, I definitely, I think birth story is so important for people to know if they don't already. Like, speak to your parents, ask them about it, ask what was going on. Because, for sure you'll pick up on things that you've carried out throughout life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's like, even physically, biomechanically, birth trauma, getting, jammed up, like it's all connected. The difficult birth often leads to both emotional and physical trauma in the child that has to be addressed at some point, or as they develop, things will, go off the path, because a lot of women, it's present for everybody. It's not just women who experience this, but because only women give birth, I'm going to be radical and put that out there.
Dare you.
I know. Cancel me, internet.
You're going to get the whole show canceled, Lisa.
I'm sorry.
The minders on your street in Orange County are going to come down, and the brown shirts are going to be at your house.
I know. There's like a drone fake pigeon sitting outside my window, like recording me for the CIA. But yeah, so sorry. I started imagining this pigeon, and I lost the train of thought what I was even talking about. I was like, what am I even saying?
Well, you're talking about even like, so emotional trauma, but then like biomechanically.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Going back to my very controversial statement that only women give birth. So with women, because the child exits the pelvic outlet, because of the compression that's found in both men and women at that SI joint, where the base of the spine is connecting itself to the pelvis. And also this kind of, just pretty much everyone has this torsion through the myofascial and musculoskeletal system because of internal asymmetries, but also certain biomechanical patterns that cause the body to go into too much of a pelvic forward hip thrust. So not to get too like nerdy biomechanical about it, but like our pelvis starts to shift in such a way that the femoral heads, everything kind of goes into this like opened external rotation. The pelvis gets pushed forward, and a lot of compression starts to happen in the low back and the pelvis. And for women, this is extremely problematic when considering the needs of a physiological birth for the pelvis to be malleable. Like things need to move completely out of place where they are normally located. They are going to move to an entirely different zip code. So you need to be prepared for that to happen. And your body has to have the capacity to allow for that kind of shift to happen. And so unfortunately, there's so much that is reflected in the body of the way that culturally, mentally, we have deviated from the design. We have deviated from our creator's design into this unnatural state where our bodies and our minds, our bodies ultimately are reflecting the shift that's gone on in our mind, in our culture, the trauma, the fear, the toxicity, the mind-body terrain has all been affected by that. So really, really important for women who are planning to have children, who have not yet had children, or who are planning to have more children. Maybe not to say that this can't be corrected after you've already started having kids, but it is really something important to address. That's part of the biomechanical training that I have started offering through my app. To segue into my current work project,
awesome.
I've been launching. I've launched an app called Heavenly Bodyz, which is this amalgamation of all the different skill sets and knowledge bases that I've accumulated along my very strange, circuitous path as a manifesting generator. And I'm finding this little digital space to create physical training. So there's an exercise library. There's a private podcast that's on there where you get the full episodes. There's like a storytelling element to it as well, because I find that it is so powerful. Obviously, if you look at how Hollywood is used to completely create and control the minds of the masses, both fictional and news media, all of it, they use narrative to shape beliefs, and it shapes how people behave. So I think it's important to reclaim the power that exists in that, to tell our own stories, to understand and utilize the power of storytelling for your own benefit, for your self-optimization, and not to turn you into some, idiotic zombie. The way that a lot of the stories that are told and that are forced down our throats are really trying to steer us into, to disconnect us from the incredible power that we have. I actually, so the premise of the storytelling aspect of the app is that I'm a reincarnation of the Little Mermaid. And
I saw this on your Instagram.
Character. Yeah. So this is the alter ego that I've created to kind of disseminate this information, because it's strictly for entertainment purposes only, of course. So I am the Little Mermaid in the little season. And so the story of this app, the story of this program, the characters are living in the little season as described in Revelation 20, a time of forgetting when Satan is loosed upon the world, post-millennial reign of Christ. And we recognize that final judgment is coming, that Satan has taken control, and the souls that are part of this app, you essentially become part of the story, because the goal of the Little Mermaid, of course, she understands biomechanics because she had to learn how to walk on land, right? So she figured all that out, and she was given this opportunity to serve God and potentially earn her way into new heaven, right? As we traverse the little season, because mermaids have different types of souls, and the stuff with the prince didn't go so well. And so she's trying to earn her eternal immortal soul. And the deal that she's given by the Lord is that if she serves 333 chosen who are destined, they've come into the little season with like intensely heroic destinies. And they are reincarnations of very famous figures from the past. So each person that joins the app actually comes in with a story that they are a reincarnation of some very famous figure who is going to perform heroic deeds to enter into new heaven at the final judgment. And so I have a podcast where I ask, I've had a couple guests on already at this point, and I definitely want to have you guys on. So I won't,
Nice.
unless you want to answer prematurely, but I ask in my podcast, if you had to choose, and they can be, I mean, I think I pretty much consider all of history fictional anyway. So they could be quote unquote real or fictional. What famous figure that I would know? Like, it has to be someone I would know. Like, you can't pick like some random, like, well, there was this guy Jim Bob who used to whatever. Like, it has to be someone like you know, a big character.
Known.
So like well known, yes, and as well known at least as the Little Mermaid, right? Who would you be? Who would you be in this little season?
That's a big question. I think I'll definitely save it for your podcast because I'll probably
you can think about it.
I'll need a while to pinpoint that. What about you? Do you reckon you could?
I might change it, but just to be fun, I would come back. I would be John D. Rockefeller, and he's like, he got the message. You fucked up. You got to go back and fix it. And he's like, shit. Okay. So he goes back and he has to like undo all the medical system monopoly.
I would choose some like mad scientist character for you. I don't know who. I'm not good at historical figures. I don't know.
Maybe it's his
names
brother,
and
Daryl Rockefeller.
Yeah. You can't choose Rockefeller because Rockefeller's consciousness was just, you know, transferred into some sort of cloned bot a la the movie Get Out. Yeah, so you can't actually be his reincarnation. But it's a good answer. It's a compelling answer. Like, I think it's cool to think about, like, well, yeah, if you had to clear some karma, or like, because I feel the little season being ruled by Satan, right, is a very dark, intense, dangerous time. And it's interesting because there's kind of this overlap in Sanskrit-based philosophy where they have the yugas, which you're probably familiar with, and I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with. And this concept of the Kali Yuga, which is like a time ruled by a demon, where a demon gets to be in charge. And it's described in the Sanskrit-based scriptures as this time of like complete, disgusting perversion, lack of virtue. There is an epidemic of, you know, vile, evil behavior across the realm. And so during this time, though, there's a special opportunity to like earn major karmic points because it is so dark and dense during that time that even the smallest act of virtue carries a great weight with it. So potentially, if you were the reincarnation of a soul that has made questionable choices in previous lives, potentially a warmonger, maybe, you know, someone who murdered, you could potentially earn enough karmic points in that final little season in the Kali Yuga, even though it's a really maybe not the most fun time to incarnate, but it carries with it a lot of spiritual potency. And I enjoy that thought experiment of what could I do? What can I bring in this time if I were to come and want to do whatever I could to serve the righteous, to serve the good, the true, the beautiful, to serve that which is aligned with God. Like what kind of story would I tell around that? What kind of training program and material and content would I want to bring to others who hopefully are in that same journey of point maxing, positive karma maxing in the little season. Yeah.
I love that. I actually love that so much. It's such a good practice in like reauthoring. You know, we talk about we get attached to stories throughout our life.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of the stories we get attached to are stories that don't serve us or that keep us in victimhood or keep us from reaching our potential. And I love that because it's almost like sometimes it can be hard. And I can certainly relate to this. It can actually be hard to start seeing yourself as like who you want to be, because you're so attached to the identity that you already have. But I think like when you're almost relating it to someone else, it's like this personification of who you want to be, but like in someone else. And I think that's actually a great place to start, because we can emulate people that we admire and we look up to, but then we need to actually start seeing ourselves that way and moving forward in that direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to jump back for a fun minute, because I had this picture when you were talking about the pelvic thing and it being pushed forward. And I'm like, so does that mean if you twerk, like if you were to take up practicing twerking to loosen up and to bring that pelvic back and just like shaking it, keeping it loose, would that help with childbirth?
Yes. You
Look at that.
You get it.
Wow.
Dude, you get it.
That's what I was saying. Culturally,
I was actually thinking about making a meme. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking like broadening that to just the idea of dance and how important that is for our bodies. It's not just a cultural thing. It's like what if it's actually there to serve your body as a woman and your balance and coordination and everything else as a man?
Yes, 1,000%. Yes. And I very much champion that idea and the content that I put out on social media. I tell every client I've ever worked with, I told them you need to just incorporate dance into your day. Also singing and dancing provide very necessary physical and movement inputs into the body that allow for us to carry out our natural physiological behaviors: walking, jumping, running, giving birth, having sex, digesting. These things require us to have a certain lifestyle. And it's not like there can be lots of different flavors. I think there's a basic structure that does require dance, community, like group dancing, social dancing, not just, so like, yes, twerking, like jokingly, yes, twerking. Right. And I was going to say that, like, I actually, it's funny you brought that up, because I've been working on a meme. This concept was for a meme around like the evolution of epiphany, right, around exercise, where it's like, oh, I'm doing like, whatever, like CrossFit. And then, but then like the brain starts like expanding as you're like, oh, I'm supposed to like dance, right? I'm supposed to dance. And then it's like, blah, like my mind is blown when I realize twerking is the answer to ultimate fitness. Like yes, there's going to be like some twerking, some chick twerking, and the guy's brain is like exploding, because I've been actually studying Tahitian dance. Not personally, I'm not practicing it, but I've been like watching footage of it and kind of learning a bit about it and the moves, and that is a wonderful way for a woman to maintain mobility in the pelvis and to build stamina, to connect with other women, to build friendships, to have a sense of community, to have fun, right? To do something joyful that puts her in her body. These are all wonderful ways to prepare. And I'm a big fan of Tahitian dancing, although like I still have a little of like remnant modesty things going on, was like being enmeshed in like guru culture for a long time. Like I didn't expose my shoulders for like 7 years. Like it was intense.
Oh wow.
Like, I was really I was very all about, keeping the body sacred. I feel like there's a balance, right? That like, it's not necessary to go from one extreme to another. And that ultimately modesty is a mindset. And that's an important thing to understand as well, but also to not abuse that concept as a way of justifying just dressing provocatively and then spiritually bypassing what that potentially means, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tahitian dancing, I might pick it up as a hobby, but they'll have to let me wear a long tank top and leggings under my, my little thing or whatever. I don't know. But I think it's really cool. I think that there is something about the way in which dance also, like so many things, right? Dance was hijacked, hypersexualized, turned into something in many disciplines, something we watch. We don't participate in it, and we watch certain people perform it, and they're like the elite movers, and the rest are just kind of these sedentary observers. And I don't think at all that that's not at all what dance was designed to be, in my opinion. And that's not the type of therapeutic dance. Also, I think ballet, maybe I'll get canceled again by the ballet people, but I think ballet is awful for biomechanics. It can develop incredible strength and athleticism. That's a separate issue. You can have incredible strength and athleticism and still have really messed up biomechanics and a compromised physiology and posture. So
I mean, you're not supposed to walk on like the tips of your feet. Like
That's why it's so funny that you mentioned this, because I swear this just came up recently.
I've been doing that around the house all week. I'm like, this feels great. My toes are getting stronger.
Was it you that brought up ballet recently? Maybe because you're wanting to walk around like a ballet dancer. But someone brought it up recently, and I actually said, I was like, I don't think that's good. There's so much about the ballet world and the dance world, but particularly ballet. Because we've got my mum's best friend who I've, grown up with, I've known her my whole life. She is a dancer, professional dancer. She did ballet as a child. And from a very young age, they're weighing them. They're putting pressure on them about how much they weigh. You're forced to, like, there's this whole conditioning process with the feet, which is so unnatural. And I agree with you. I don't think, like, I mean, I can't say I've ever been to the ballet, but I can appreciate, when you see them dancing, it can look really beautiful. But I tend to agree with you. It's probably not the best thing for bodies and minds of young women.
Is that flexibility, like with being able to do the splits standing, does that cause damage, or is it how you go about increasing that flexibility that matters? Like,
it matters. Most dancers who go to the highest levels of dance have hypermobility because it self-selects, because they will naturally perform better at dance. And so they will continue to pursue it because it's a field in which they perform very well and have, they're able to access certain ranges of motion that are harder for other individuals. Yoga is actually similar, but lots of hypermobile yogis and yoginis. But in dance, so mechanically, perhaps that's not going to cause some sort of issue. Posturally and biomechanically, though, in terms of the patterns of movement, like ballet dancers all run very goofy. They all have like a very goofy, like duck run, where they're like, I don't know. I'm doing it right now. You can't see my legs, right? But like they have this goofy, like turned out kind of duck waddle when they try to run, because because just like the tissue of our body, the patterns of our movement are malleable, they're adaptable. They mold to that which we expose our system to over and over and over again. So the adaptation will start to take you into a different pattern from the one that you were physiologically designed to have. So most people that I've seen, that I've trained, that I just simply observe out in public, most people have impaired biomechanical patterns. And unfortunately, what that means is that the fascia is not transferring energy correctly or efficiently, and that there is like basically constant damage being done to the myofascial and musculoskeletal system, small, because you're basically taking the energy, the movement, the ground force, and sending it the opposite way that it's supposed to move. Again, it's a little biomechanical nerdy. I could do like a whole presentation on this concept, but like in a nutshell, you're sending energy the wrong way through your body, which has huge implications, especially when you can kind of turn it into that broad stroke of understanding that like energy is not moving through my body the way it was designed to move. So of course it's going to cause problems, right? And again, whether it's in birth or how we walk and run, there is going to be some type of physical price most of the time that you're going to have to pay for deviating from the blueprint of how we were designed to move and live.
What about with running? I've noticed that because I've taken up running again. And since my military days, I learned to run on the forefoot. And I haven't done that at distance for a while. I've done a little, 400-meter warm-ups on the treadmill. And man, my hips are just killing me. I'm using my product. I got stuff that'll help with that recovery. And I feel like it's not just the muscles are sore. It's like the ligaments in my pelvis are like reshaping.
So here's my challenge to you, Isaac, when you come onto my show, so that we follow through on this. As manifesting generators, we don't always follow through. So I have to create little challenges for myself to make sure that we follow through on things. Okay. So I'm going to send you instructions on how to record yourself running. Okay. If you're game, then on the podcast, when you come onto my podcast, on the Heavenly Bodyz podcast, we'll spend a little bit of the episode talking about your run, and I'll explain to you what's going on, what I see in your gait, and what I would recommend to consider, in terms of training and things like that, to get yourself back into the pattern. Because I can say if your hips are hurting and you're in pain after you run, you've deviated from the blueprint. That's not how we were designed. We're not supposed to feel pain after we run. Running is a natural innate behavior that we are designed to perform.
Yeah. It definitely feels like something's shifting. So definitely send that over, and I'll gladly record myself running and work on my gait. Because I'm like, in my head, I'm doing it properly, but I'm like, it's my body's telling me otherwise.
Whereas me, I just don't run. Running's not my thing. I'll sprint. I'm a sprinter. I'm not a runner.
That's good.
Yeah. I've known from a very young age, I get really bad stitches when I run. I can sprint, I can do 100-meter sprint, go hard. And I think that just suits me better, short bursts of energy, not long. It's funny. I did cross country running in primary school a couple of times. I actually went and did the race, and I don't know how I did it. Honestly, I think the stitches actually got worse as I got older. But I was going to ask though, will people have different gait patterns? For running, for example, will there be, because I'm just thinking of my dad, for example, he's flat-footed and he has one leg shorter than the other. He's certainly not a runner either. But for someone like that, would they run differently to say how Isaac runs? Would that be natural for them to run differently?
Yeah. Yes. However, so there of course will be variations of a correct run and an incorrect run. And there is a binary there. There is a correct way to send energy. And then if it's not that, it's incorrect. So most people, a natural gait pattern, I'm very much generalizing, I'm kind of distilling it down, but a natural biomechanical pattern is out to in. Our body goes, it loads out and it releases energy in to the other side, right? We load on one side and then we send the energy over to the other leg, right? One leg, we're bipedal. So we have this side to side movement. The way that the unnatural gait pattern has occurred for most people is that instead of loading out to in, they will load in to out. And so when they are transferring or supposed to be transferring ground force to the other leg, to the opposite leg, they send the energy away from it. So they move the energy away from the midline of the body. So the limbs are not in coordination with the movement of the body as a whole. So holistically, the movement is in opposition to the movement of the individual part, which I think a lot of us, if we kind of, again, extrapolate and think of the body and our patterns and how that body moves through space as a reflection, as a mirror of what's going on at an energetic biofield terrain perspective, or even the chakra system, right? That's essentially what is connected to this, that there's some imbalance there that is connected to what we see and how the body is positioning and moving itself through space. That's not the complete picture. And like you were sharing about human design, I think it's good to have systems that can identify very general patterns, but it's up to us as individuals to understand the story. We have to interpret what our unique physiology and circumstance and patterns are telling us. Like, what's the story that's being told, and how do we respond to that? How do we interpret that? So that's why I stay away from systems like GNM and like some of these authors who have their very rigid, like, well, if your left arm hurts, your problems with your mother are at the, just like sort of like dictating exactly what it means. I think it's great to have those starting points, maybe seeds that are planted that you can, marinate on and decide if they resonate with you or not. But I think it is important to consider and at least make an attempt to understand what the physical body is reflecting to us about our inner psycho-spiritual world.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you mentioned that too, because I actually love GNM, but I don't use it as a like, it's GNM. Everything in GNM is exactly that's what the problem is. It's like, no, I like it as a tool in the toolkit, because I also think it's important to consider things like traditional Chinese medicine that look at the emotions in different organs of the body. And Ayurvedic medicine does the same thing. And it's like all these different schools of thought. And I think they're beautiful tools to have in the toolkit. But again, it's like, don't take it with dogma. And I think that's one of the issues in the GNM world, is that so many people are so dogmatic about it. And and don't want to incorporate it with any other modalities to actually help with the conflicts and stuff. But no, I love that. I love your philosophy, and I love that, like, looking at that. I think you guys spoke about that actually in your first episode together about like treating the body holistically, because what modern medicine and science and, even fitness training does is it isolates all these different parts of the body and removes everything from working as a whole system together, this ecosystem. And I think that's so, so important. I mean, that's where my sort of journey started with, in terms of like my training and study, started with holistic nutrition, because that's why I was like, you can't just treat like different parts of the body. And like, cause for me, my background was in mental health, and it's like your physical health impacts your mental health and vice versa. And I mean, like you said, and like you said before, I think you hit the nail on the head, like this mind body connection that is so crucial to who we are and how we function, has been so damaged by the way we've been conditioned, by our lifestyle, by, the way that we live in the Western world. And I think it's so important to come back to that. And that's a huge part of my work now and it's moving more and more into the direction of the mind-body connection, because you literally can't have one without the other. And you can see a lot, like you can see it even more now, how we are so conditioned to live in the mind. And look at the state of people's bodies. We're obese, really overweight, chronic health conditions starting in childhood. Like, it's just getting worse and worse. Yeah. People just don't. Like you. Yeah. Yeah, people are just so sedentary and don't move their bodies, but they're just constantly like, they're just so up in the mind and on social media and watching things. And it's like, it's so disconnected.
Yeah. We're not in our bodies anymore. And again, bringing it all the way back to birth, if you are habitually accustomed to dissociating from your body, from your physiology, entering into the state necessary for in my opinion, a successful birth, it's extremely problematic if you haven't already gotten yourself to the point where you can access the present, to access your body, to be in your body. So I think physical training, huge part of preparation for childbirth, and of course mental, and again, it's all connected. So preparing the mind, preparing the spirit, that should all go hand in hand when the mother is preparing for that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love this work that you do. I'm actually really intrigued by the app. So please tell us more about that and how we can access it and all of the work that you do. And I feel like we'll have to get you on again at some point in the future, because I feel like that went so quickly and I could talk to you for another 2 hours very easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know
I can't wait to have
about...
you guys on. I can't wait to have you guys on my show as well, where I can ask you some questions, and we'll get into all the past life tea that you guys have, but and we'll look at Isaac's Gate. But yeah, the app is it's still in development. I have what I call my platinum circle. They are early adopters, early investors that have joined the app, that are basically my beta testers as I'm completing all of the programming. So the very first program that's offered on there is Heaven's Gate. Yes, I recognize there was a cult named the same thing, and there's a little winky wink in there.
Heaven's Gate, yeah. Heaven's
Gate, but GAIT, of course. And I think Nikes are terrible, so we will not be purchasing any of those.
Same.
Barefoot shoes only.
I love that movie Air, but Nike as a whole, I'm like, it's definitely not what the movie portrayed. It's like, yeah, separates you from
I haven't seen the movie, but I think, Nike, just biomechanically speaking, the design of their shoes is disastrous. So they're clearly run by Satan, obviously. But yeah, Heaven's Gate. So it's a foundational biomechanical restoration course. So the exercises that are in there are designed to assist people with decompressing joints, which is a really important part of restoring the biomechanical patterns, because most of us, myself included, have compression in our joints due to patterns that have deviated from the blueprint. So decompressing, and then also reprogramming the body to understand how to load and release energy through the body by using movements that are aligned with a natural gait pattern. Because again, repetition, input, that's how we adapt. So if we have deviated from the pattern through various lifestyle choices and training modalities that we've exposed our body to, we can reverse engineer our way back to the natural gait pattern by using inputs that are in alignment with how we want our body to actually move. And the body is beautifully, miraculously malleable, and truly anything can be healed, in my opinion, including biomechanical patterns. And then I have a podcast that's in there. So I have several interviews recorded that I still have to circle back to and edit. Toddler mom season is intense. Finding time to carve out for... When I launched the app, I was staying up until 3 or 4 a.m. at least like 3 times a week after my daughter went to bed, and like building content, writing stuff, like doing all the back end stuff, because I'm a solo show. So as you guys understand, there's a ton of programs and apps and spreadsheets and blah, blah, blah that you have to deal with when you're launching something like that. So anyway, so I have material I'm in the process of editing. The first section of the interview is going to be released on all the, the basic channels, YouTube and podcast stations. But then the second half, that's all in the app. So eventually I'm going to release a subscription to the podcast where you can get the full episode, similar to what people do on Substack, but it'll all be self-contained within this one app. And then I also have storytelling, where I'm telling the story of the Little Mermaid being reborn in the Little Season, the various other characters that she interacts with. So I tell the story of the Little Mermaid. And this concept first came to me, this Heavenly Bodyz concept, was in 2012. And I was living in Los Angeles. I was working as an actress, or rather attempting to work as an actress while doing various side gigs and things like that. But I wrote this story that I had initially envisioned as like some sort of web series, but it's morphed into a training program where the gods of Olympus, the gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus from the Greek mythology, are reincarnated in the Little Season. So they've come back too. And they've made some pretty, as we know from reading Greek mythology, that some of the Greek gods and goddesses have made some questionable choices, in their dealings with men and women. And so they've come back, they've taken on bodies. And so they have a lot of karma, right? They're out to do some positive karma maxing so that potentially they can earn their way into the new heaven when the scales come out and they have to stand before the great throne. So they've decided to assist men and women in healing their bodies, maximizing their health, they're trying to do the righteous good thing by assisting mortals. And they are the coaches of Heavenly Bodyz.
I love that.
Yeah. So Zeus runs a fitness franchise. They all live on Mount Olympus. There's actual Mount Olympus in Hollywood, where the street names are all like Zeus and Apollo and all of that. It's
really?
a weird place. It's probably a pyramid. I actually think it might be a pyramid that's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Super weird place. Lots of weird energy.
Yeah.
But so that's where the Heavenly Bodyz concept initially came from. And then it slowly, as life events unfolded and qualified me in certain ways and took my interests and my beliefs in different directions, it's kind of turned into this thing now that is an app that hopefully I can find 333 amazing, heroic souls to enter into and train with me and to join. And so, my soul is on the line with this whole project, and hopefully it will turn into a success. I plan to launch the monthly membership as soon as I have enough of the Heaven's Gate program completed. There's 6 levels. I was a little ambitious, but I felt like that's what's necessary for it to deliver what I want it to deliver. And the first 2 levels are completed, but there's 4 more. And I'm planning to record the remaining, try to do a big batch of content this Friday. My parents have agreed to watch my daughter for me so that I can record some stuff, but it's very time consuming, like being your own camera crew and your own writer and all of that. So it just takes time, but hopefully a monthly membership will come. Yeah. And then just like a standalone, I'm really envisioning future courses that will be in different training modalities, like so this one is gait restoration, but I would love to have prenatal, postpartum programs and
that would be amazing
programs. And maybe breathing. There's a vision course actually that I want to release about improving your vision, and so stuff like that, just optimizing the body, optimizing the mind and spirit along with it, and battling some demons along the way, and rising to one's heroic destiny.
I freaking love it.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Incredible. I love the vision, and that's exactly what needs to happen. Like the way that Crow 777 talks about the Apollo and Zeus and all that, and he's comparing it to aspects of nature. I totally resonate with that, and I think there is also that in the body, because the body corresponds to that's found in nature.
That's a great point.
Your atlas joint, or the jade pillow as they call it, and then all these other things that correspond with colors and maybe constellations or whatever. But
absolutely, musical notes, and because our body is acoustic as well, our fascia is acoustic, so sound, vibration. That's why singing is so important, and also the tone of our jaw muscles, essentially masseter, the way our jaw sets is also very important for how the body operates, if believe it or not. And
I've been using that.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Stuff. My mother just was having a little bit of vertigo, and there's some bodily movements that are kind of old school that you can do to kind of help with that. But I was bringing up the vocal toning that Eileen McCusick had talked about, and dealing with nausea and stuff. So I'll check in with her this afternoon and see how that went, but hopefully that helps. So
that's so interesting. My mom has vertigo. She actually used to have extremely serious vertigo. But it's interesting. I really like this one. a healer. I'll call him a healer. His name's Martin Brofman. He healed himself of stage 4, very, very serious cancer, and basically had reached a point where doctors said there's really nothing that can be done, and kind of preparing him for hospice care kind of thing. And he healed himself completely, got rid of all evidence of cancer in his body, even though it had formed these like enormous painful tumors and everything. But he talks about, so as an example of the wounded healer, right? The way in which God often places these experiences in our path to qualify us through direct experience. It's not something that you necessarily can learn in a workshop at that level, right? But you can share that knowledge with others, and not everyone necessarily has to go through that story, and hopefully others can learn from that story. But I think God qualifies certain healers in that way, where they have to prove, right, that they have to prove that they can apply these methods and heal themselves and then share with others. Right. So, and I do think that God has given me those things and put a calling on my life in that way. And that I had to overcome the demons and the depression, and I had to overcome the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and all of that. And I'm in my, I'm in my third initiation, where I'm having to deal with a broken marriage and raising a child on my own, and my life taking a completely different trajectory than what I ever imagined was going to happen. And embracing it and understanding that it's another lesson, because God has been faithful and shown me that on the other side of every single one of these initiations, every time I have to descend into the pain and the darkness, that there is a gift waiting for me on the other side. And my daughter is an amazing gift. But I think I'm still in the process of healing from recent life events. Divorce is, it's something else, and an entirely different episode, but healing from that, and knowing that just, if I keep going and embrace it as a lesson, embrace it as a means for strengthening myself and building further resilience, that I will emerge on the other side wiser, stronger in so many ways, and that there will be some tremendous gift waiting. And hopefully it will be in the form of this app that's serving other people, because I wasn't planning to work. I was planning to be a stay-at-home mom, focus on homeschooling my kid, and being happily married, happily ever after. And that is not what happened. That's not the story. That wasn't the story for me. And there was a different story waiting, and I had to be redirected into this plot twist. And the prospect of having to provide financially for my child, it's a very real pressure, and I'm very blessed that I have family that are supporting me right now, but I'm not getting any kind of assistance from her dad. I have to figure out how to take care of her, because as much as I appreciate the assistance and support of my parents, as I described before, this is not where, bloom where you're planted, right? But also I believe in the prophet Dean Koontz, who wrote in his book about the Wuhan flu reemerging in 10 years after the initial outbreak and then disappearing forever. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that little piece of conspiracy theory, but I think what we saw with Cooties 19 is something that is very much going to resurface. It's going to
return.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think that California is the right place for myself and my daughter to be when that happens. At least that's what I think right now. I leave it to God. I trust God will guide me, but right now I'm operating under the assumption and the motivation that there will be some new test, right? There will be a new test. There will be new offers to contemplate and new choices to make, and hopefully by building, similar to how the Bears did, right? And you build your own platform. Instagram, I don't want to complain about Instagram, I've connected with a lot of people through there, but there is objective evidence that my account is account is
suppressed.
Marked. There's the trends in when I gain followers and suddenly everyone just decides on the same day to unfollow me when I haven't even posted any new content, or,
wow.
It's just very strange, and so it just feels like there are certain algorithmic limiters that have been placed on my account. So I want to create a space where I can have my own platform, and as I'm not a victim of Instagram. They can do what they want. It's their app. So I'll build my own app.
I love that. Yes.
I love it.
Long term, that's the way to go. And we'll definitely this episode will help, and people go check out download the app, sign up for the program.
Definitely a lot of valuable information. Like, I think it's something so simple as how we walk that so many people overlook. And
I'm paying attention to it right now, because I'm like, one of my baseline things, and I'll kind of end on that, but the ability to move your body as a man or a woman. I don't think women need to work out as much as men as far as like heavy lifting and all that. I think it's helpful. I think it's good to do some resistance training and to feel what it feels like in your body to lift correctly and all that.
Yeah.
And then, but like running and moving. So if something happens here, they lock down the roads or whatever, COVID, resurfaces, and they start moving your feet over hills, over mountains, having endurance, having the ability to move, and knowing your limits is helpful. Not everybody's going to need to, but for those that have the will to go and move, I was trained, by the Special Forces guys, and we're like, if we need to pick this stuff up and carry it 50 miles that way, and that's the only way we can get there, we're going to do it. So
and that's why I chose you as a partner. So I don't have to do it. No, I'm joking.
But it's like, hey, we need to get supplies over here. So and doing that with a higher degree of expertise, or like the right gait, the right aftercare, the right way to like knowing now that I know how to treat blisters extremely well, and like all these other things that come up. Skills are how we move through all these obstacles much easier. So
absolutely. And yes, amen to all of that. And when you become a parent, as I'm sure it's like, if you have to carry your child to safety, God forbid, but there are circumstances that happen in this realm where you need to get yourself out of a bad situation, and you can either be an asset to that situation, or you're going to be a liability. And if you tear your ACL while you're trying to flee from some dangerous situation, it could even be a natural disaster. I live in a place where there's wildfires all the time. Crazy fires go through this area. What if I have to travel on foot and take my child to safety somehow? Like, I want to be prepared for that. That is the level of fitness that I think is extremely important for every parent to consider. Yes. Yeah. And my toddler's heavy. She's definitely 45%. She's 33% Nephilim for sure, because she's huge. She's enormous. She's like 99th percentile for weight. She's a big kid. She's 90th percentile for height. She's big, healthy, thriving little person.
Reincarnation of Xena right there.
maybe. Oh, how funny. I used to joke about how Xena was my alter ego. I had someone actually call me Xena.
Yeah, you actually kind of look like her.
I had someone call me Xena when this was back when I was personal training, and before I was married, all of that. But I was walking the streets of Asheville, North Carolina, with a friend I had at the time, and someone yelled out like, "Hey, Xena, like, what's going on, girl?" Like that to me on the street. And I was so flattered. And I was just like, this confirms that I am following like the path intended for me in life, that I am being, shouted out as Xena on the street by some random dude who doesn't know me. I loved it.
Yeah. That's like God telling you are a warrior princess. Yeah. I love it. I love this conversation. I love your work so much. Like I'm actually really intrigued. I think it's so valuable for all stages of life, really. Like that's what I'm kind of in this phase of like I feel like I'm preparing for pregnancy and childbirth and all of that. And I think there's just as much work that goes into it, that should go into it, as, you know, the following phase of being a mother as well. So I love it. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Thank you guys.
I think that we'll
You guys
definitely
are
have you on
awesome.
again in the future for sure.
I would love that. I love that. Yeah, I can't wait to have you guys on, and I'm very honored that I got invited back on to speak with you guys, and so great to chat with you, Alexa, and good seeing you too, Isaac, again. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast, where we explore holistic healing modalities, mindsets, and methods that reconnect us to nature and our natural state of being.
If something resonated, share this episode and see the show notes for our guest links, as well as all of our discount codes for our aligned affiliates and Natural Art Form, where we handcraft a range of organic, natural remedies to help support your body's natural healing abilities and help support the show.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates.
We're not here to conform, we're here to remember what's real. So step into your power, be curious, and be natural AF.